Hello, fellow stampers. This is Yana Smakula for SimonsSaysStamp.com. Welcome back for another Hippie for Yana video. It's been a long time since I did any pattern or background stamping using non-background stamps. And pattern stamping is one of my favorite ways to make backgrounds for my handmade cards. So I challenged myself to find a floral stamp that I like and use it to create a pretty background for my card. I picked the floral cluster from the Thankful Flowers stamp set. It's an older set from Simon, but one of my favorites to color. I pulled out my Misty stamping tool, Simon's Intense Black ink, and Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and stamped my heart out. It only took 4 impressions to cover the panel for an A2 card, and I made sure to rotate the floral cluster so that my stamping did not look identical in each of the corners. You can, if you feel like it, do some masking and even overlap your stamping to have beautiful, seamless pattern. But I didn't want to do that and stamped a simple background for my card. I would like to make this card again, but use a light gray ink pad instead of black for stamping the flower outline, or perhaps even do some heat embossing in gold or some light gold colors for a softer look. Having stamped the background, I picked several colors. I settled on a color combo, and from there, I picked my Copic markers for the coloring. Copics are my medium of choice, as I like how quickly I'm able to color using this medium. I don't always have the luxury of time that is needed when one does coloring using colored pencils or watercolors, so when I don't have a lot of time, I stick with Copics. I started by coloring the leaves on the panel, and here, as well as the rest of the coloring, I used my go-to colors: YG01, YG03, G94, and G99 markers. You will see me do simple coloring and not much blending, and this is how I color these days. I do not stress about making things perfect. I just try to enjoy the process, and if I feel like going back and adding more color or doing more blending here and there, I do that, but I do not overthink nor overblend. You'll also notice I'm not being too careful when coloring. I have a marker going outside the lines a lot, and again, I'm not worried about it. I know when I color on white, I can always fix that with a white pen. Or I can color the background to a dark color and the bleeding won't be visible. I used R20, R22, and R24 markers to color some of the flowers red. I picked one flower and colored it red, so the same color on each of the clusters, and I did that for each of the flowers. So the largest flower in each cluster is colored light red. Next, I colored several flowers yellow, and for that I used Y35, Y13, and Y11 markers. I had to pause and refill one of my markers as it was running dry, and it was preventing me from properly saturating my paper with ink. Next, I colored the flowers tan or peach. I'm not really sure what to call this color. I used E000 and E02 markers, and those I typically use to color skin, but they look stunning as flower colors too. I colored some of the flowers muted pink, and for that I used RV34, RV11, and RV00, although most of these flowers ended up being covered by sentiment. And finally, the last flower was colored using violets. I used BV11, BV00, and BV000. The flower centers were colored using a C9 marker to look almost black. Now, I wish I had picked a lighter color, maybe C7 marker or a C5. I think that would have looked a bit better. But once I started coloring, there wasn't much I could do, so I just went ahead and finished coloring all of the flower centers using that C9 marker. The stamp set, the Thankful Flowers, includes small dot clusters, and so I used those dot clusters to fill in the gaps in between the images. I stamped the dots in black ink, and I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink for this. It's my favorite ink for stamping anything black. You can skip this step and leave the space blank, but I always like to add something to the empty spaces on my cards. I have already created a sentiment. I used an R22 marker and colored a piece of white cardstock to create a custom color cardstock. Next, I waited for the paper to dry and then heat embossed a simple sentiment that reads, "Hope your day is the best day ever," in white embossing powder. I used detail embossing powder from Hero Arts, and the sentiment comes from the Birthday Word Mix 1 stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. I cut the sentiment out using my paper trimmer, and now I'm adhering pieces of cardstock to create dimension. I want to add some dimension, but I don't want to use foam adhesive squares, as that would add too much dimension. So I'm adding just a little bit of dimension by adhering 3 panels of cardstock. Then, to adhere the cluster to the card, I'm using foam adhesive. I also used a white pen and added white dot details to the flower centers and also added highlights to some of the flower petals. I hope you like this card idea. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We always enjoy seeing what you guys are making. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys. I'll see you next time.